At the council, Aemond is not ready to accept any experienced advice and shuns Alicent's voice as if she isn't even present at the table. He tells Tyllin to form an ally with the Triarchy leaders to break the Velaryon shipping blockade, as the Hightower and other ships are going to take time to arrive. Alicent believes that the Triarchy can't be trusted to this extent. Cole also believes that if Daemon prevails in Riverlands, they won't have the army to compete with him, provided they already faced loss. However, Aemon believes that waiting any longer will lead to this and orders Cole to march to Harrenhal, while he will fly to them when the time is right. Once the council is dismissed, Aemon calls out Alicent, reminding her that her role at the council was to be an alternate to his father, Viserys, to be the advisor of Aegon. With both not in the council anymore, her services are not needed in the council. Needing more dragon riders, Rhaenyra calls a council meeting where she invites Steffon Darkland to request him to claim Seasmoke, as he carries a distant Targaryen ancestry. Rhaenyra asks for Steffon's consent at this life-threatening attempt, which Steffon considers his honor. Daemon keeps having weirdly realistic dreams. In the recent ones, he sees Viserys mentioning how he doesn't consider Daemon worthy of the throne. Daemon starts feeling trapped and suffocated till Simon opens the door for him. He lashes out at Simon, accusing him is poisoning or drugging him with something, and decides to leave for a while till Alis stops him. She convinces him to stay back and see if the conditions change in a few days for now. Grover Tully won't be negotiating in his current sick state, while House Tully is one of the most stable allies to have with Riverlands. Steffon tries to control Seasmoke, which seems successful at first, but the moment he thinks he has done it, Seasmoke blows fire on him, burning him to death and putting Rhaenyra in a new kind of guilt. The small folk are frustrated in the King's Landings for not having enough food, while the royals feast on lambs and luxuries. Mysaria mentions this to Rhaenyra, telling her she has ignited a spark for the small folk to blame Aemond, and the plan will completely be executed tonight. Aemond orders Larys to summon Otto Hightower back to the court to be his hand. He then visits Aegon, who has gained consciousness but has no memory of what happened. Rhaena confronts Jane about a wild dragon roaming freely in the area, so Jane tells her she can move to Pentos to have Rhaenyra's kids sheltered there. Mysaria sends flood-laden boats to the King's Landings with Rhaenyra's banners to evoke favor for her amongst the people. Along with the plan of seeing her child suffer, Alicent also worries about not receiving a response to her letters to her father. The people are fascinated by Rhaenyra, but still fight over the limited supplies received by them. Soon this rage turns to Aemond and others ruling the King's Landings. The victims of this rage are Alicent and Helaena, who are out to the church at that time. The queens barely manage to escape unharmed from this riot. Larys can see Aegon might be permanently disabled physically, but he is fine mentally, so manipulates him to use his disability to have people underestimate him and then overpower them as Larys does. Daemon is once again sleeping and dreaming about Viserys when he receives the news of Grover Tully's death. Rhaenyra and Mysaria talk about Daemon being the other half of Rhaenyra, after which Mysaria reveals the traumatic past she has gone through. The words and emotions lead to the two sharing a passionate kiss till they are interrupted by the news of Seasmoke being slighted with a rider. Rhaenyra wastes no time to fly and see the rider for herself. Flying to Seasmoke, Rhaenyra finds herself in front of a sea knight, Adam of Hull. He kneels in front of Rhaenyra, exclaiming the dragon came to her and how he'd love to serve the queen and claim he isn't one of the Targaryen blood. Knowing she has found what she considered impossible, Rhaenyra accepts him. Disturbed by the events she has witnessed, Alicent decides to go to Kingswood to clear her head. Larys gets to know about the rumor of Seasmoke being seen with a rider, but doesn't let it known to Aemond yet. Back at the castle, everyone is shocked to hear that Rhaenyra has recruited the said thief, and she didn't even bother appearing at the council to justify her choices. Rhaenyra vents out to Mysaria about having no other choice but to trust the people the dragons choose as their riders. She begins searching in the books for Targaryen blood, but Mysaria tells her to better search in the streets of King's Landing for dragon seeds with thicker blood ties. Oscar Tully arrives at Harrenhal with the River Lords. He may be ready to form allegiance with Daemon, but he makes it clear to Daemon and the River Lords that he despises him and is only doing so in respect for his late father's sworn loyalty to Viserys and Rhaenyra. The River Lords are still hesitant, so Oscar condemns Willem Blackwood in front of everyone for his war atrocities and makes Daemon prove himself worthy of the support of the River Lords by making him execute Willem. Later, Daemon gets another visual of Viserys being old and weary, expressing how the weight of the crown crushes whoever wears it. Larys secretly keeps pushing Aegon toward a faster recovery. Corlys visits Adam of Hull, telling him about his brother claiming sea smoke, and if Adam wants it too, but he chooses to serve the sea. As Rhaenyra's children are escorted out of Eyrie, Rhaena sneaks away to look for the wild dragon. Jace confronts Rhaenyra about her plan, claiming this could threaten the Targaryens' legitimacy. He eventually lays out his fear, sharing how he is considered a true heir because he is a dragon rider, but he knows that his biological father was Harwin Strong. Rhaenyra doesn't like hurting her son, but feels like she doesn't have any other choice. Upon Mysaria's instructions, Elinda spreads out the word about Rhaenyra looking for Targaryen bastards to be dragon riders, along with many others. Hugh decides to try this for the better lives since his prostitute mother was a Targaryen, and he already lost his daughter to poverty. On the other hand, Ulf, who has boasted about his Targaryen ancestry, is forced by all the people to take part in this too. As the potential people arrive, the Dragon Keepers refuse to support her in this venture. She still goes ahead with the plan and takes the small folk to the dragon Vermithor, the largest living one after Vhagar. She steps aside to see if Vermithor chooses someone or not. The next few moments are utter pain and chaos as Vermithor keeps burning up people. Ulf falls and manages to escape away through a cave. Hugh is hiding but eventually confronts Vermithor, which leads him to be chosen by Vermithor. Meanwhile, Ulf accidentally ends up in Silverwing's dragon lair and awakens her. But instead of being attacked, he gets chosen as her rider right away. Suddenly, chaos ruptures in King's Landings at the sight of a dragon. Aemond rushes to get on Vhagar to reach Ulf, who is flying Silverwing, and follows as he goes back to Dragonstone. However, seeing 3 dragons with Rhaenyra, Aemond decides to retreat. Tillend visits the Triarchy leaders for alliance, who seem way too wild and casual compared to what their way of kingdom and leadership is. The leader, Admiral Shirako, first makes fun of his physique and then challenges to a duel in something. Larys visits Aegon and tells him about Rhaenyra finding 3 new dragon riders. He proposes for Aegon to travel with him and hide in Braavos till he recovers, as there are gold stashes there and he isn't fit enough to take a stand right now. Once the chaos is settled and he is better, he can reclaim the throne. Aegon is offended by the thought, but eventually quiets down, realizing he has no power over himself at the moment. Rhaena looks around the dragon with no food, water, or shelter on her, making her survival in the open fields harder. Jace finds Ulf in the council room with his legs on the table and doesn't like his attitude. Even after knowing Jace is the prince, Ulf's attitude and manners aren't as respectable as they should be. Hugh tries to buffer the situation, but Jace feels frustrated at Ulf. While talking to Corlys, Rhaenyra is ensured that Adam is a man of integrity, but Corlys also warns her that Aegon might use Helaena and her dragon against them if need be. Rhaenyra doesn't think Helaena is skilled enough for war, but the two hope this doesn't happen. Simon overhears Alfred telling Daemon to become the king and lead over Rhaenyra rather than following her. Helaena is simple-minded enough to not even know why they are receiving the hate. Alicent explains it's the expectations of the people and then suggests they both get rid of this burden from their shoulders and leave this place. Mid-conversation, Aemond comes in asking Helaena to march to war with him on the dragon. He chooses to force her to follow him till Alicent stops him, reminding him Helaena is the queen, and she won't allow him to take her to participate like this. Gwaine confronts Cole about his relation with Alicent and for waging the war. Cole regrets waging a war using dragons, realizing how utterly helpless they become when the dragons appear on fields. Tillend and Shirako have a mud wrestling, in which he eventually defeats Shirako, getting successful in allying with them. Baela empathizes with Jace, but reminds him that being an heir to Rhaenyra has much more to do than just being a dragon rider, and he should stand with her to show true royalty in his blood. On the supper table, Rhaenyra also takes note of Ulf's lack of manners, but promises the 3 knighthoods if they serve her well in the course of the next few days, as they plan on leaving in 2 days to attack Lannisport and Oldtown. Daemon is woken up by Alice, who takes him to the weirwood tree to show him his fate. Touching the tree, she sees a White Walker leading an army of whites. Brynden Rivers becoming a 3-eyes raven, a landscape of dead dragons, and Daenerys Targaryen with the 3 dragon hatchlings. He also sees Rhaenyra sitting on the Iron Throne while Helaena appears mentioning Daemon finally knowing his role in this plot. Aemon tries to be gently persuasive towards Helaena, but she refuses and confronts him about burning Aegon and his dragon at Rook's Rest. She claims to foresee his death in his war, and Aegon reclaiming the throne. Simon summons Rhaenyra to Harrenhal, worried that if people like Alfred might turn Daemon against her. However, she goes in to see an army created by Daemon, and Daemon kneels before her in front of everyone, claiming she is the queen and they all serve her. Corlys tries to bond with Alan, but Alan calls him out for ignoring them for as long as his legitimate children are alive, and now that they are gone, he wants to get close to him and Adam. He refuses to let Corlys have that authority over him. Rhaena finally finds the wild dragon after a long search. At night, Alicent secretly visits Rhaenyra. She finally accepts the mistake she has made, thinking she was doing the right thing. Rhaenyra is not amused by Alicent coming to her after things have gotten so out of hand, but Alicent seems tired enough to want to hand the throne to Rhaenyra once Aemond leaves to accompany his army at the Riverlands. However, Rhaenyra doesn't wish to spare the lives of her children in return. She insists on taking a son for a son, so Alicent has to choose to give up on Aegon's life to end this war. Alicent's silence and tears seem to somehow acknowledge that, along with the promise that the gates of King's Landings will open for her in 3 days when Aemond leaves. Meanwhile, at the King's Landings, Dragonstone, Harrenhal, and Westerlands, all the armies prepare to march for the war. Larys takes Aegon away while Otto Hightower is seen captive at an unknown place while all this happens.